The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Monarch Fantasy. Sign up with the code SGPN to get 50% deposit bonus up to $1K. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Get a 7 for child today by going to sportsgambling.com, RITHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. It is currently Thursday afternoon, roughly 1 p.m. Eastern Time on January 2nd. I'm Rosso, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Officially the first episode of 2025. I know we already did the outright episode for Brisbane and Hong Kong. Technically, that was in December of 24. Now we're officially in the new year. So far, can't complain. Been some fun action in tennis, but either way, point is hopefully we keep winning on this episode as we did in the previous episode. Now, getting into the actual recap of the last episode, starting off with the lock and dog picks. Overall, a great episode for us. Ended up sweeping the first episode of the new season. For the lock, we had Berrettini team total over 12.5 at minus 150. Bit of a sweat there as Berrettini did fall behind a break in the third set, but we needed him to not fall behind 2 breaks, and he held easily in the last 2 service games. So either way, nice winner there as he lost but finished with 13 as he lost in 3 sets. For the dog, though, never in doubt, had Kyrgios and Perricard first set tiebreak at plus 125. Think it closed to like minus 140. We beat just an insane line move on that, and it makes sense because even though Kyrgios was not 100%, all 3 sets that they had went to a tiebreak. You saw 0 breaks the entire match. Kind of what we all expected, and either way, point is, did cash the dog there at a nice plus money price. Hopefully, you got there early because I know it closed at minus 140, but I guess anyway, if you got it at minus 140, it won anyway, so it wasn't like it was that big of a deal. But nice sweep to start the season, and hopefully we'll keep it rolling here in 2025. And before we get into the actual quarterfinal breakdown of Brisbane and Hong Kong, do want to remind everyone once again that you can show support for the show by subscribing on YouTube, and a reminder, you can also leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. Plus, a reminder, don't forget to check out the SGPN merch store. We have a lot of great Tennis Game Podcast merch. We have sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, all high quality or affordable. So once again, check out the actual merch store, not just for the tennis show, but also for the other shows, the network, the NBA show, MLB show. Those are the other shows that I'm on. Also, College Experience, a lot of great shows with a lot of picks in different sports. So once again, if you want to show some support for other shows as well, check out the merch on the merch store. Plus, a reminder, for the actual podcast on the network, download the app. We have a free app on the App Store, SGPN app, all your picks, all our picks and podcasts on one place for free. Just type SGPN into the App Store. Now, lastly, I want to point out that it is a milestone episode for the podcast. Even though YouTube shut about halfway through, we are officially at episode 400 of the show. So once again, for the 400th episode, first of all, thank all of you, whether you are new to the podcast or old to the podcast. Thank you for helping the show grow. And because of the 400th milestone, as you can see down below, we're going to have a contest. Now, this is going to be a review contest. We're looking for reviews on Spotify or Apple. So leave a 5-star rating and a review and send me a screenshot on Twitter. You can DM it to me, and then the winner will be getting a gift card to the SGPN merch store. So if you do want to get yourself something for free on the merch store, once again, try to enter the contest. It's free. All you have to do is just leave a rating and a review and send me a screenshot of it, and then I will pick a winner randomly through some type of random number generator. So point is, we're going to have a contest to celebrate the 400th episode of the show. Now, anyway, time to get into the actual recap of what we saw over the last few days. Mentioned before, the lock and dog picks went well, so overall can't complain there. Getting into the action that we actually did see in either the round of 16 or in the event so far. So starting off with the matches that actually happened on Thursday morning, Perricard ended up beating Tiafoe 6-4, 7-6. Classic Tiafoe match where things went poorly for him early, and then eventually he just could not, I'd say, come through on the big points, as the tiebreak was kind of weird. A lot of mini breaks, but eventually Perricard did get the job done as he won 7-4 in the final set breaker. Djokovic beat Monfils 6-3, 6-3. I'll get back to that in a second. For Hong Kong, you saw 3 straightforward matches. Borges lost to Munar. Good win for Munar. Musetti did beat Diallo in straight sets. You saw Shang beat Martinez in straight sets. And classic Rublev, defending champion, got upset by Morozin. So Rublev is still the same guy, apparently. Nothing has actually changed there for him. And as a result, we did not back him for the event because we don't trust him. Now, for the Djokovic match, I want to quickly reflect back into tennis in about, I'd say, 1980. It's going to be a throwback quote. I'm sure you've heard this quote. There was a well-known player by the name of Vitus Gerulaitis, who was a very solid player. The problem was there was one guy he could not beat. That guy's name was Jimmy Connors. Now, Connors, we know, is an all-time great player. He has been a legend in U.S. tennis, especially, for a long, long time. Point is, though, Gerulaitis was not too good against Connors in their careers. In fact, he was 0-16 lifetime. However, in 1980, in the Masters event to end the year, Gerulaitis finally beat Connors. And after winning, he ended up using a pretty famous quote nowadays. Quote, "Nobody beats Vitus Gerulaitis 17 times in a row." The reason why I bring that up is the same cannot be said about Gael Monfils, because Monfils faced off against Djokovic, and Djokovic beat him 17 times in a row, but it wasn't just 17. He beat him 18, he beat him 19, and earlier this morning, he officially beat him 20 times in a row. Joker is 20-0 lifetime against Monfils. So I wanted to mention that, had to break it down, because Monfils, of course, was a former top guy. He's a very talented player, successful. I could argue based on talent, he should have been more successful, but the point is he was still a top 10 guy. 0-20 against the guy is pretty outrageous in the head-to-head. But yeah, Joker just owns Monfils, and 20-0 is just absolutely, I'd say, just incomprehensible. But that's where we're at this point. So either way, point is Joker did beat Monfils again. 20-0 lifetime, so I wanted to mention that. Props to Joker there. I thought Monfils played okay. He lost 6-3, 6-3, but it wasn't like he played badly. Joker just looks good to start 2025, so we'll see if he can keep it rolling here for the remainder of the event. Now, I do want to briefly touch upon the actual outrights that we had pre-tournament, just to give you an update on how we're doing on those. For Brisbane, first quarter, we did swing and a miss. We had Papiron at 750. That did not work out as he lost immediately. We said before we thought Joker would win the quarter. He was like minus 300. I wasn't going to bother. So point is Joker, we ended up skipping on. For the second quarter, we have a lot of life. In fact, we automatically win. We have Pericard at 333, and we have Mensik at 4-1. So we automatically win. A pretty decent outright there for the second quarter. Third quarter, we have a 50% chance if you ignore the actual odds. We had Jari and Bonzi. Jari did end up winning, as he ended up beating Bonzi in the head-to-head in straight sets. So he's now at plus 500, as he does have a matchup in the quarters. Is he going to win that matchup? To be honest, probably not, but you never know. Point is, though, we're looking at a chance of Jari cashing a 5-1 outright for us, as he does have a matchup against Leheshka in the next round. So we'll see what happens. He's plus 200. So if you want to middle it, or if you want to go for a potential hedge, Leheshka's around minus 240. Point is that Leheshka should be favored. I'll get into that match in a second, but we do have a 5-1 draw here for the third quarter as well. For the fourth quarter, Berrettini did lose a 3-1, but we do have Dimitrov at 150, and he is also a pretty decent favorite as he takes on Thompson. Should be a fun matchup, as Dimitrov is minus 250. So once again, we have a pretty decent chance to clean up for the actual outrights in the event. Now, for the actual outright picks for Brisbane, we had Joker at 148, and of course, he's now like minus 170. Dimitrov, we have at 11-1 as well, and Berrettini did lose. So can't complain too much, though. Overall, a good outrights, I'd say, couple of days for us, at least based on what we have remaining. So hopefully we cash a couple. Automatically win a quarter, though, of either 333 or 4-1 in the Pericard Mensik match, which is definitely fun. Now, for Hong Kong, want to mention the outrights. We did not have any quarter odds for that tournament. Overall, pretty good, too. We have Fees at 6-1. He's still alive. Did lose Kashanov in a pretty fun 3-set matchup against Nishikori, who did beat him. And then we have Musetti at 10-1. So we do have 2 out of 3 guys remaining in the quarters here for the outrights in Hong Kong. So overall, it could be a very good week for us for the outrights, but hopefully the guys remain alive and hopefully get the job done in the next couple rounds in order to actually give us a chance for either an automatic winner or just an outright victory to start off the calendar year on a high note. Now, anyway, before we get into the actual matches here for the quarters in Brisbane. We're going to do Brisbane first and then Hong Kong afterwards. Forward to that, though, do want to remind you once again that we are brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, because they have a lot of great items in their pick-a menu. They have a lot of ways to help make you a lot of money, because they have Profit Boost and Gimme Pick'ems. They also have a best ball lineup for the playoffs in the NFL. The Underdog Playoff Best Ball, I'd say, contest is now live. The Gauntlet Tournament has $2 million in prize up for grabs for just a $25 entry. NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and more. You can also use specials and boosts on Artiflex entries for the upcoming entry. What do I want to do? The issue is trying to find teams that actually care enough in the NFL for Week 18. Not many games that actually are worth a damn. However, I am going to go with one game, and I am going to go with one guy that has been kind of lighting it up offensively. He's actually a rookie, probably not going to win Rookie of the Year offensively because it's going to go to Jaden Daniels, but I am going to go with Bo Nix higher, 1.5 passing touchdowns. The Chiefs are benching everybody, as they should. Clinched home field throughout the AFC. So give me Bo Nix to look sharp here and a must-win game. Give me the higher, 1.5 passing touchdowns in that game on a Sunday for my underdog entry. Reminder, though, you do sign up for your new account. Use the promo code SGPN to claim a special weekend first-time deposit offer up to 1K in bonus cash on a fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished recapping what happened in the first couple days and how our outrights are still doing pretty well. Moving on to the actual quarterfinal preview here in Brisbane. Now, for the actual schedule, there will be one match, or basically 1.5 matches taking place on Thursday night. The Jari match is taking place at around 8:30, and then you have Thompson Dimitrov starting after that, but probably going to be on Wednesday at like midnight, give or take. On Friday midnight, Now, for the actual order, getting into the Jari match first. Lehecka is around -3. Jari's +3 for the actual money line. Said it before, but Lehecka's -240, and Jari is +200. For the over-under in games, you have around 22.5. Now, for the actual path of both guys, Lehecka's been good so far in the event. Now, he did have a bit of an interesting matchup there, as he ended up having a 3-setter against Nishioka, who's always tough on hard court. That's why we backed him last year and won outright with him. Lehecka did outlast him as he won in 3. Was good against Rune, though, in the first round. Did win that one in straight sets. For Jari, we don't actually like him, but we think that he has enough firepower that translates well on the hard courts here in Australia, and that has been the case as he beat Navone. Not easy, did win 2 competitive sets, and beat Bonzi comfortably, both in a straight set. So point is, Jari's been playing well. The head-to-head, though, does favor Lehecka, and Lehecka is definitely the better player as he's blossomed into a nice up-and-comer. I'd say a nice up-and-comer over the course of his young career. He's 28th in the world. He could probably be higher than that if he didn't get injured in the middle of that deep run he had in the Masters 1000 event, where he ended up beating Nadal, I believe, in the quarters. Then he got injured, so point is he missed a couple months there. Did beat Medvedev when he came back, so he has been playing well since returning from injury. But in the head-to-head, he ended up beating him in Adelaide last year in straight sets. Did beat him in the last meeting on clay in 2021. Lost the first meeting, but those were challenger events. So they faced off one time on hard court. That was last year. And basically the same environment in Adelaide. And you saw Lehecka win in straight sets, I believe, en route to the title. So point is, Lehecka, I think, is the better player. Jari's been good. Both guys are good servers, but I think Lehecka's a bit more reliable. And I think you're looking at a guy that I just think at the end of the day is better. Really no other way around it. I think Lehecka is a guy that can definitely outlast Jari in the potentially long rallies. I don't expect many long rallies in this matchup, but I think that Lehecka's in better form. I think he should win. However, I do think the over is appealing at 22.5. I see at least one tiebreak. Both guys are good at serving, and I do think you're going to see a lot of firepower from both guys. The first hard court meeting between them did land 22. There was a 7-5 in there, but there was also a 6-4. So both sets were competitive. It's at 22.5. I think I would go with the over. I expect to see at least one competitive set here. I don't mind Lehecka team total over, but that's probably heavily juiced. Let me quickly see what that is on DraftKings as I pull that up. But I am expecting at least one competitive set, probably 2. You might get a 3-setter out of it, but for the player props here, Lehecka over 12.5 is -150. I don't hate it. It's kind of like the Berrettini play that I had for the last episode. I think the only concern is I can see a world where Lehecka wins like 6-4, 6-4. That could happen, but I think you'll get at least 1 7-5 or 7-6 or maybe a 3-setter in there. So I don't mind that. I think that probably is my favorite play of the matchup. I'll go with Lehecka team total over 12.5 games at -150. I think it's going to be a close matchup, but I think Lehecka's better. I'll go with him to get the job done. Hopefully I'm wrong, because if Jari pulls off the upset, we had a nice +500 outright for the quarter. So hopefully that ends up working out. Moving on, though, to the next matchup. You have a pretty underrated matchup here between Dimitrov and Thompson. For this one, Dimitrov's -250. Thompson is +210. For the game spread here, you have -2.5 for Dimitrov at -130. You have +2.5 for Thompson at +110. For the over-under is around 23.5 games. The over is +110, and the under is -130. Now, for the head-to-head history between them, it's been competitive, actually. Now, Dimitrov is 2-1, but there have been some competitive sets here. Faced off in Brisbane last year, actually. So an immediate rematch, and Dimitrov did win 6-3, 7-5. Believe that was the semifinals of last year's matchup. It was, because I remember Thompson did beat Nadal in, I believe, 3 sets there, and then Dimitrov ended up winning a title in Brisbane. So point is, Dimitrov did win the first, I'd say the last 2 meetings, the only meeting last year, they faced off in 2022, where Dimitrov did beat him in Indian Wells 7-6, 6-2. Faced off in Miami in 2019, and Thompson did win 7-5, 7-5. So you have seen at least one 7-5 or 7-6 set in each of the 3 head-to-head meetings, which were all on hard court. Thompson's been good, like no way around it. I actually bet him personally against Mickelson in the next, I should say the second round, and he ended up winning in straight sets. But he won 7-5, 6-3, did beat Berrettini in 3. You're looking at Dimitrov, who's a little good, but he had a tiebreak against Vukic and a tiebreak against Hoffman, so he has had at least one competitive set in each of the first 2 rounds. I see a pretty similar story here. I think Dimitrov's better. I think Thompson's alive, though. I think that he definitely has the game to make it interesting, but I think that Dimitrov will outlast him either in 3 sets or a competitive 2. Don't mind the potential over here, but it is once again, 23.5. So we're looking at what should be a potential 3-setter maybe with that. But I think you're looking at a close matchup. I'm going to give Dimitrov the edge. Unfortunately, though, the team total for Dimitrov at 12.5 was around -175, which I can't take. That's a bit too juicy for me. So instead, I'm going to go with, I think, just the over at +110. The issue is, once again, if you get a 7-6-6-4, that's a decent amount of games, you still lose because that's 23.5. So I don't mind 22.5 if you can find it at like -130. I think that's a better option. Give me a close competitive battle, but I think that Dimitrov's going to outlast him again for the second straight year in Brisbane. Moving on to the next matches here in Brisbane. You have Mensik taking on Perricard. Now, Perricard is -125. Found a couple -140s, though, so that 125 might not last. Mensik is around +105. Shop around, though, you could probably find +115 or +120 if you shop around. Now, for the actual spread, -0.5 a game for Perricard at -115. For Mensik, you have +0.5 a game at -105. The over-under in games is set at 25.5. Now, Perricard has been an absolute machine. We know that he's the best server. He's on pace to maybe be an all-time great server. We're talking about like a guy who is in the same class as a Karlovic or an Isner or a Sampras. Of course, Sampras has the Grand Slam titles, but Perricard is an absolute machine. There's no way around it. You really just can't even come close to breaking him. And I do think you're looking at a spot where Mensik has been good here. Don't get me wrong. Mensik has looked sharp since losing in the group stage of the Next Gen Finals. But I do think you're looking at a spot where Mensik is going to have to probably break through in either a breaker or maybe even just trying to get a break of serve, but that's going to be a pretty tall task. Faced off one time in Poland in 2023. That was on clay, and that was a 3-setter, but that also resulted in 2 tiebreaks as Perricard won both breakers and Mensik won the middle set there 6-3. Now, Mensik has been good. He's also been playing doubles, though, so fatigue could be an issue. Beat Kukushkin in straight sets, and he ended up beating Lajovic in straight sets. So overall, he's been sharp, but Perricard, we know, is a serving machine. Beat Tiafoe 6-4, 7-6, and ended up beating Kyrgios in 3 sets, with all 3 sets going to a tiebreak. So for the matchup here, I understand why Perricard's favored. Do I want to lay 140 market wide? No. I found a 125. To be honest, I just like the over. I'm not going to overthink this. Mensik is a pretty good server. Not an amazing one, but he can rally. And Perricard, we know, is not the best rallier. We know Perricard's serve is almost unbreakable at this point. A crazy stat, by the way. Perricard has not been broken in 8 of his last 9 matches. The guy just holds serve all the damn time. And when you have a second serve that's basically a first serve 2.0, good luck trying to return a 135 up the tee as a second serve. So I see a couple breakers here. I think you're going to see a close matchup. I think Mensik's alive to win it. I don't mind, once again, maybe taking a flyer with Mensik, and we win automatically for the quarter picks because we had both guys to win the quarter. I think you're looking at what should be a fun matchup that comes down to the wire. I'll watch it anyway if Tennis Channel actually shows it instead of United Cup nonsense. But the point is, I think that Perricard and Mensik should have a war. I'll go with that. I don't mind the over, and I don't mind potentially Mensik in 3. I think you might get a marathon. So just have some fun and enjoy the show. For the last matchup, though, in Brisbane, you have a very lopsided one. In fact, it's the most lopsided one on the entire board. You have Joker, who's around minus 1,500 against Opelka at 9-1. For game spread, you have Djokovic at minus 4.5. You have Opelka plus 4.5. The over-under in games is around 21.5. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. No head-to-head history. However, you can only point back to his record against good serve bots in the past. Karlovic, I know, did beat him once, but I think Opelka is a guy who has been playing well, ended up beating Arnaldi in 2 tiebreaks last match, and he ended up winning the first-round match against Gomez in straight sets. Joker's been great, though. Like, look at the actual path. He beat Hijikata in straight sets and ended up beating Monfils in straight sets. However, the question is, can Opelka make one set a tiebreak? Because if he does so, first of all, tiebreak in the match is like minus 115. Second of all, 21.5 games is very low for a guy who holds serve all the time in Opelka. So if you end up getting a 7-6 in there, you're in pretty good shape to actually cash a 21.5 over, because that means that Joker has to break Opelka twice in the second set. So the point is, Joker's been good against serve bots in the past. He used to kill Isner, ended up beating Karlovic most of the meetings. I think Opelka can make it interesting for one set. Probably not going to be able to keep it competitive for 2 sets. But I think you're looking at an over being intriguing. I think that you're looking at Joker, who's been great. But if Opelka can keep holding serve as well as he has been, I think it's a pretty wide spread and a pretty low total for a guy that you're looking at holding at about an 80+% clip. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. Now, is Opelka live to win it? Absolutely not. I think Joker's going to win. It would be a shocking upset if Joker ends up losing. Then again, he ended up losing to Nardi last year, so you never know in Indian Wells. But I think that you're looking at a pretty interesting matchup. Joker should not get broken at all in the entire match. I'd be shocked if Joker even faced more than 2 break points in the entire match. That could be an interesting prop. If you could find a prop on Joker to win without facing a break point, that could be interesting. Opelka, I think, can hold serve for maybe a set in a row, not 2. I think Joker's going to win, but I don't see much value on Joker here. I'd probably go with the over, or maybe at the tie break in the matchup, but I think that 21.5's a bit low. I'll go with that. Maybe the spread, if you want to go for an Opelka plus 4.5. Joker's going to win, but that's a pretty wide number against a very good server. I'll go with that as my choice there for that matchup. Moving on, though, to the 4 quarterfinal matches here in Hong Kong. Starting off with the first match, you have Fees taking on Mueller. Now, this one should be a pretty interesting one because Fees is a massive favorite, arguably too big, as Fees around minus 315. You're looking at Mueller being around plus 265. For the spread here, you have Fees minus 3.5. You have Mueller plus 3.5. The over-under in games is set at 22.5. You can find 21.5, though, at around minus 130. For the set spread here, you have Fees minus 1.5 sets at minus 115. You have Mueller plus 1.5 sets at minus 115 as well. So dead split there for the straight set victory and Mueller to win a set. And the over 2.5 sets is a plus 155. Now, Fees we have as an outright to win the event. However, he actually is 0 against Mueller in their careers. It was on clay in Rome, and Mueller did beat him last year in straight sets, but that was on clay, not really going to factor it in. Now, Mueller ended up looking pretty good in the first couple of matches here. Had a marathon match against Husler in qualifying, and that was actually a kind of, I'd say an appetizer for the entree, which was the marathon match between him and Kekmanovic, as he ended up winning 5-7, 7-6, 7-6. The match was crazy. Point is, though, Mueller has barely escaped in 2 rounds, and we'll see how he looks in this matchup against Fees. Now, Fees has been good. Had a pretty interesting match there in the Next Gen Finals, where he ended up losing to Tien in 4 sets. Then he showed up in Hong Kong after a pretty underwhelming showing there, losing the group stage, and he beat Bergs in straight sets, 7-6, 6-4. Now, I do think that Mueller's serve is going to be a serious problem for him in this matchup because Mueller is not a good server at all, and I do think that Fees will generate a bunch of breakpoint chances throughout the course of this matchup. Now, the thing, though, is that Fees can be let's say, a little bit lackadaisical at times, and I do think you're looking at a guy who tends to play with his food a little bit. I think Moore can keep the match somewhat intriguing for a little while. Is he going to win? Probably not. I think Thies is better, and it seemed like in his matchup against Bergs, I don't mind Bergs actually, decent amount of firepower. Moore's going to try to keep the ball in play, and the question is, will Thies hit unforced errors and kind of self-destruct? That's the only chance Moore has of winning. I don't see that happening. I think you're looking at him probably getting broken at least one time per set. Probably enough. I think Thies probably wins in straight sets. But even the matchup against Kekmanovic, which ended up going to a couple of breakers, including an absolute marathon final set breaker, I think that you saw a pretty underwhelming serving display from Moore in that matchup. You saw Moore in that match get broken, I believe it was 4 times. So even though it went to a couple breakers, that was not a simple hold fest. There were a bunch of breaks involved, offsetting each other. In fact, Moore was actually serving for the match, and he got broken. So, and he had 2 match points, actually. So the point is, Moore had a couple of chances to hold, and he was not able to really do so. He got broken 4 times. So he wasn't exactly serving well in that matchup anyway. Kekmanovic was just also a head case who also just could not hold serve. Give me Thies to do a better job of holding his own serve while generating constant pressure to the Moore service games. I like Thies in straight sets here at around minus 115. Moving on, you have Musetti against Munar. Musetti is another outright guy that we have at around 10-1. For the actual money line here, minus 274. You're looking at Munar being plus 229. For the spread here, minus 4 for Musetti, a plus 4 for Munar. The over in game is set at 21.5. For the set spread, you have Musetti in straight sets at minus 110. You have Munar to win a set at minus 120. The over 2.5 sets is plus 150. Now, they faced off 4 times in their careers, and Munar's actually been really good. However, there's one caveat. They have never faced off on hard court. So Musetti beat him in Wimbledon a couple years ago in straight sets. Faced off in Santiago in 2023. Munar won in straight sets. Faced off in Turkey in 2021. Munar won in 3. Faced off in an Italian challenger, and we saw Munar win that one in 2019 in straight sets. So the head-to-head kind of means nothing. Musetti dominated the last meeting, which was not on clay, but that was on grass. No hardcourt meetings, so I kind of have to toss the actual head-to-head out the window. Now, Munar has been good, ended up beating Fokina in the first round in 3, ended up beating Borges in straight sets in the second round. As for Musetti, beat Diallo in straight sets, who's a pretty good hardcourt player. I believe he made a final last year where he lost to Kashanov. Forgot where that was. Think that was in Astana, but don't quote me on it. Point is, though, you're looking at Diallo being a pretty good hardcourt player for a youngster, and Musetti beat him pretty comfortably. I think Musetti's better, and I think that Munar is... both guys aren't exactly the best servers. You're probably looking at a baseline battle between these two, but I think that Musetti has a bit more net prowess, so I think that he might come to the net a bit more to put points away quickly. I think Musetti's going to win. Might be close, though. This could be a 3-setter potentially. Like, I don't mind the value for over 2.5 sets of plus 150. I'm going to go with Musetti to win, but I think Munar's been feisty here, and he has beaten decent competition, beating Borges and beating Fokina. So I'll go with the over 2.5 sets at plus 150. Think that it could be an interesting, I'd say, baseline battle between these two guys. Give me the over 2.5 sets of plus 150 as my favorite value play for that match. Moving on to the next matchup, you have Shang against Morozin. Shang's at minus 170. You have Morozin at plus 150. For the spread here, you're minus 2.5 for Shang, plus 2.5 for Morozin. The over-under game is set at 22.5. Set spread, you have Shang in straight sets at minus 135. You have Morozin to win a set at plus 105. The over in games is around, once again, 22.5. For the set actual total here, the over 2.5 sets is plus 130, and the under 2.5 sets is minus 160. For the head-to-head here, you're looking at Shang, who's been successful. He's 2-1. But not the easiest collection of wins because they faced off in Belgrade last year, actually, and Morozin won, beat him in 3. Faced off in French Open qualifying in 2023. Shang did win in straight sets. Faced off in Australian Open qualifying in 2023, and Shang did win 6-4, 7-6. So a couple of competitive matchups here, and Morozin is the most recent winner. So you could argue that there's value on Morozin in this one. Shang has been dominant. Now, the counterpoint, he hasn't played anybody worth a damn. Beat Wong in the first round, 7-6, 6-4, and then beat Pedro Martinez, who we know is a clay specialist, and he won that one in pretty convincing fashion, only losing 4 games in the entire match. So Shang had a very easy draw here to the quarters. As for Morozin, very, very battle-tested. He ended up beating Safulin in straight sets and beat Rublev in 3. So I actually like the 4 Morozins in. I think Shang is a bit too big of a favorite here. I think Morozin is capable of pulling off the upset. For me, this is a simple over 2.5 sets match for me. Faced off last year in Belgrade on hard court, that was a 3-setter. I see a pretty competitive matchup here between the two of them. Then again, you could also argue that Shang might just be the guy you got to auto-play every time he's in China. We saw him win a title last year in China. Maybe it's similar to Tiafoe when he's in America compared to international, where Tiafoe is brutal in international tournaments, but he goes to America in the U.S. Open, for example, and he somehow remembers how to play. It could be just a home crowd thing. And Shang has definitely thrived in China over the last couple of years when he's played there. But I think that Morozin is pretty live to win it. Once again, beating Safulin and beating Rublev on hardcourt, defending champion Rublev too, I think that tells you Morozin's pretty dangerous. Now, the second serve is still very weak for Morozin. It's the main issue of his game. I think Shane, though, you got to always worry about durability, but he also just hasn't played anybody. I feel like when you're looking at the overall strength of schedule, Morozin clears him by a wide margin. So I'm going to go with Morozin to keep it interesting. Don't mind the actual games here for Morozin, but 2.5 might be a little bit steep. I mean, a little bit, I'd say, low for me. I kind of want a 3.5. You could take him to win a set at plus 105. I don't like it. I don't see Morozin winning in straight sets. So I'll go with the extra value here. Give me Morozin and Shang over 2.5 sets at plus 130. Cash last matchup. And I think that we're looking at what should be a pretty similar story of a competitive war between these two guys. Moving on to the last match. You have a good one. You have Nishikori, who's alive in the quarters, against Nori. Now, for this one, Nishikori is actually favored. He's minus 135. Nori is plus 115 for the game spread, minus 1.5 for Nishikori. You have plus 1.5 for Nori. The over-under games is around 22.5. For the set total here, you have over 2.5 sets at plus 125. And for the under, you have minus 155. For the set spread, you have Nishikori to win in straight sets at plus 205. You have Nori to win in straight sets at plus 250. Now, they faced off a couple times, 2 times actually. However, both meetings are very dated. Faced off in Washington in 2021. Nishikori did win in 3. Faced off in Wimbledon in 2019, and Nishikori did win in straight sets. So, no recent meetings. Been basically 4 years, 3.5 years since their last head-to-head meeting. Now, Nishikori's been good, but he has had I'd say a pretty difficult path. Beat Shapo in straight sets, only lost 5 games in that match, and ended up beating Kashanov in a competitive 3-setter where he ended up winning 7-5 in the final set. As for Nori, he ended up beating Tien in straight sets and ended up beating Sonego in 3. So the point is, he's also had a much easier path. I think we'd agree that beating Shapo, who actually won a title in his last event, and beating Kashanov in 3 is harder than beating Tien and beating Sonego. So I think that it makes sense that Nishikori's favored. He's also undefeated in the head-to-head, but I think it's going to be a close matchup. Sonego has been, I'd say, a pretty streaky player, but you saw Nori beat him in 3. I think that Nori is a guy that tends to find himself in marathons, and he had a couple of marathon matches in Mets en route to losing in the final. So if you actually go through his last couple matches, he went to 3 sets in 4 of his last 7, and he dropped at least 1 set in... Sorry, just going through the actual numbers here. He's dropped at least 1 set in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe it's 7 of the last 8 matches he's dropped at least 1 set in. So the point is he has been vulnerable. Sorry, let me just make sure about that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 of the last 8 matches he's dropped at least 1 set. In fact, 7 of the last 9. So he's been involved in a couple of marathons here. Nishikori has been a marathon guy as well. He's gone to 3 sets, or I should say, if you want to actually go through the numbers here, he has seen 4 of his last 6 matches not end in straight sets. So based on that, I think you're looking at what should be a close matchup. The last meeting in Washington, yes, dated, did go to a decider. I think you're looking at what should be a fun matchup here that goes the distance. Give me the over 2.5 sets at around plus 130. That's going to wrap it up, though. I think Nishikori is going to win that match, by the way, for my pick as a side. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the quarter picks in Brisbane and in Hong Kong. Now it's time for the actual lock and dog picks. Now, before we get into that, though, do remind me once again that we're brought to you by MyBookie, because MyBookie has been around for a long time with SGPN, and a reminder that they have a bunch of props for every game and a live dealer casino. They also have cash out options. They have a bunch of great deals with us. Head to mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN, for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip. MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. A reminder that SGPN's proud partner Rhythm is the number one AI-powered sportsman platform that will provide bet as well as the ability to build models in seconds. If you want to try building a betting model, this is a good platform to try it out with. Get predictions on money line spreads, holes, and props. And a reminder, you can build the model, you can copy one from the leaderboard, and you can also let Rhythm build one for you. So you can do all the above or one of the three. A reminder, they can also track props in the Rhythm app. You can track NFL picks, NFL props, college football, college basketball, NBA. Rhythm has it all. And a reminder, try it out for free for a week with the link sportsgamblingpodcast.com, Rhythm, sportsgamblingpodcast.com, RATHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished previewing the quarterfinal matches here in Brisbane and Hong Kong. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. So for the lock and dog, I'm actually going to go to Brisbane for both these, and I am going to go with some niche plays, but I do like them quite a bit. For the lock, I'm going to go back to the Djokovic match against Opelka, and you know what? I am going to take the risky approach. This price on principle is way too cheap. It's available on a bunch of books on BetMGM. It's on FanDuel. It's on DraftKings as well. I remember DraftKings had the best price. It's going to be the Djokovic and Opelka match. First 6 games, 3-3 at minus 120. Couple reasons why. Main reason, Opelka is a really good server and a useless returner. Now, Opelka, we know being a serve bot tends to hold pretty easily, and the return games are a lost cause. Now, Opelka went to 2 tie breaks in his last match against Arnaldi, so he's been no stranger to tie breaks here in this event. But this prop has cashed in 7 straight matches for Opelka. Makes sense when you think about it. Joker, I think, will win the match pretty convincingly in straight sets. However, I think adjusting to his powerful serve after dealing with Monfils and dealing with Hijikata might take some getting used to for Joker. I see Opelka holding for the first 3 games. All you need. You know, Opelka, who holds at around an 80% clip to hold in the first 3 games of this match. Joker will hold in his games against Opelka because Opelka can't rally. So give me what should be a pretty, I'd say, uneventful start to the matchup, but minus 120 for a prop that's cashed in 7 straight and for a guy who's one of the best servers on the entire tour. Yes, it's Joker. I get it. He's been great. However, I think minus 120 on principle is a price that is too cheap. I'll take it. Give me the Opelka and Djokovic match. First 6 games in the first set, minus 120 for it to end 3-3. For the dog play, I'm going to go back to the well because it's worked pretty much every time we've taken it. We're going to go to the Mensik and Perricard match. Give me the first set tiebreak at plus 107. 8 of Perricard's last 11 matches have featured a first set tiebreak. Tiebreak in the match in general is minus 275. So you're expecting at least 1 tiebreak, and I think that plus 107 is a great price on Bet Rivers. Perricard, by the way, has not been broken in 8 of his last 9 matches. He is the official serve king right now on tour. You can't break him. You really just can't go near him. First serve, 142 or higher. Second serve, he can go for it again at 135, or he can just hit a nice kick. Point is, he's basically unbreakable, and I think you're looking at Mensik, who's a very good young player. I like Mensik a lot. Think he'll be able to outlast Perricard in the longer rallies, but Mensik's also a decent server. So I see a pretty, I'd say, straightforward, classic Perricard match like we saw against Kyrgios. Couple breakers, but I definitely expect to see the first set feature a bunch of easy holds. The first meeting was a 3-setter that featured 2 tie breaks, so I think you're looking at what should be a pretty simple script here. It worked for us in the last episode. I'll go back to it. If you're going to give me 2 good servers, Mensik's not as good as Perricard, obviously. He can hold his own. Pretty good server, but you're going to give me 2 good servers for a tiebreak at plus 107. That's a great deal. I'll take it, and I think there's some value on that number. So once again, the plays here for the lock and dog picks. The lock's going to be on Djokovic and Opelka. First 6 games in the first set to end 3-3 at minus 120. That's on DraftKings, but it's available on other books as well. I think it was minus 125 on FanDuel by comparison. For the dog, though, I'm going to go with Mensik and Perricard. First set tiebreak again at plus 107. That was on Bet Rivers. That's going to wrap it up, though. For this episode, a reminder, show some support for the podcast by leaving a rating and a review, especially for our contest, 400th episode. A reminder, leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple, and send me a screenshot on Twitter, and you'll be entered into the random drawing for a chance to win a free SGPN gift card. I believe it's $100, so if you do want to get yourself some free merch, once again, enter the contest by sending a screenshot of your review for the podcast on Spotify or Apple, and once again, just sending it to me on Twitter via DM. Anyway, a reminder, you can also check out the merch store, and a reminder as well, back once again for the semifinal matches here in Brisbane and in Hong Kong. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.